mundane things here. um, yes, just a few little things, Abby, I was going to ask. You know the way the right side inner scapula is kind of reflective of liver? Am I right?
What was the word you used? Something about scapular?
The right inner border of the left scapula, of the right scapula, is kind of liver.
Sort of. Not, I mean, it could be. I mean, liver really should be, well, okay. So the liver doesn't always okay. Sorry, let's finish your question, and then let's cut through the
Well,
details.
well, probably incorrectly. So I was kind of taking that as a as being a fact. But what I was wondering was, like, below that, you know, say from T7, 8, 9, 10, 9, 10, that area, is that reflective of anything in particular?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So actually, T7 through T9 is actually on the right side. The Wattos and the inner bladder line, those will reflect the liver. That's originally what UB35 on the left side fixes, is right T7 to T9, either bladder or Watto lines. By extension, it could be, and specifically bladder 43 on the right side, could also reflect liver, with some idea that that's an emotional component of liver, whatever, but it could be. So yes, but to say that the whole inner border of the scapula, which is bladder 41, I think, through 46, that's a bit, it can happen, but I wouldn't automatically say that. So now, if you have inner border of the scapula just on the right side, and nothing on the left, which will be quite rare. Okay, literally nothing on the left, because it's actually a lot more common to have something on the left and not something on the right. And the reason why, because the left reflects the pacemaker, the heart, which means it reflects the autonomic nervous system. If you only have it on the right, there's a good chance that bladder 35 on the left will be a contributing point, but the chances of it being purely a liver issue is not terribly high. That is not a reflex that says it's liver. It suggests that there's a possibility of liver involvement. In other words, it could be a lung issue or some circulatory issue, because ultimately the inner border of the scapula is about circulation of blood and oxygen. Okay, that's really what it reflects. It reflects the organs that are just in front of it, the lung and the heart. On the right side, you don't have so much of a heart component. Now, if you have a liver constitution, let's call it, whatever, you have an underlying liver condition, it's entirely possible that there'll be a lot more tightness or pain, or that the right side will reflect because of the lung issue. But the vulnerability from the liver makes it show on the right side, whereas the left side, quote unquote, hasn't yet developed, because there is not an extra contributing factor for the left side to show. Okay, so that's kind of like why, yes, the inner border of the scapula on the right side is somewhat of a liver reflex, but it's not a total liver reflex. The so-called real liver reflex on the right side on the back would be T7 to T9, including the inner bladder line. I'm not so sure about the outer bladder line. I've never seen that, to my recollection, showing that way. And I will say, since we are in reflexes of liver, I will say this: there are, supposedly, because, well, most of us, as far as I know, check the patient on the front first, that we check the abdomen first. So supposedly under the ribs or liver 14 should show in liver, but the truth is there are people who do not show on the front. And you go, gee, I think this is the liver situation, I should treat liver, and but they're not showing on the front. And suddenly when you turn them over, you go, oh, here goes. They're showing bladder 17 or 18, 19 area. Okay, so it is entirely possible for that to happen. Liver, it's because the reason why the liver shows in the front is actually it's physical. The physical liver is pressing on the diaphragm, and sometimes it just, it's like, okay, here's a different example. For example, with prostates. Okay, so it used to be, nowadays the way they determine the size of the prostate is with an actual ultrasound. They used to, if you talk to urologists, they tell you, well, 20, 30 years ago, we thought we knew exactly how big your prostate is, through a rectal finger rectal exam. And when the ultrasounds came in and they discovered that, well, actually they were making lots and lots of mistakes. And they realized that what they were feeling is the part of the prostate that's pressing against the rectal wall. But the prostate is, it has a whole other angles to press against. So the growth could be elsewhere, which you're not feeling any puffiness, against the rectum itself. So it's the same thing with the liver. The liver can be pushing, enlarging, or tight, but you're not going to feel it in a spot under the ribs. Okay, that's typical that it will, simply because it's pressing against the diaphragm. But so sometimes where you see it is actually in the back, which is, you would think it will be less likely because there's a lot more muscle, there's more muscle, there's more area there for it to reach out, but sometimes it actually does show more in the back.
Mm.
So, so sometimes what happens is I see someone with C3 on the right side, and there's a bunch of things that suggest liver, and I'm kind of like, but it's not showing, but it often will it will go, okay, here it shows on the back.
Yeah.
So, so I don't know if that was good enough, if that was clear.
No, this patient had like the paraspinal muscles are really raised and it was really sensitive.
Yeah.
But it was a bit lower than I thought it should have been if it was
No, it's quote unquote where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
The patient is not abnormal. And the other thing is the paraspinals could be very tight for more reasons than that, but they show extra on the right side.
Yeah.
In other words, there could be some sort of pelvic shift. They could also be a sugar type that's supposed to show more on the left, but because of the liver issue, they're showing more on the right. So, in other words, I would go for, as always, okay, it suggests liver. What other suggestions do I have for this in my mind, so I can take insurance? Because if I just address 50% and it looks good on the table the next day or the 2 days later, the other factors that haven't been tapped into will come up. So I'm always curious to see how many factors are actually involved here. So I'm never satisfied with, okay, it's liver, I did my job.
Yeah.
I might have done my job. There are people, this is truly just liver. It's entirely possible. But in case it isn't, I'm always looking, okay, what else could there be here?
Yes. And what would you release that with then? I mean, I did 35, bladder 35.
Okay, so yeah, the bladder 35 is so if I'm going to go dogmatic here, meaning this is for this and this is for this, so I know I addressed this. So the bladder 35 on the left side should resolve right side T7 to T9, paraspinals. Sacroiliac can be a very good point also. So I test them all and see how much effect they have. And if any of them has a certain amount of effect, I add them on. And then T12 could be useful also because of sugar. Okay. And the other thing is sometimes, and the next time, since at that point, if when it's the first time you go, oh, look what's happening here. And you don't really want to go back to the abdomen at that point. Okay, some people do, but I generally kind of, okay, next time what I'll check is for example, I'll note that I can palpate the T79, from the front. I can just get my hand from underneath. And then what I'll do is I'll check things like, for example, the OD point, which is on the right. It's exactly opposite the place that you're talking about. Is that going to have any effect? So it's just going to, and then I'll look at what happens if what kind of liver treatment on the front might soften these muscles, if at all.
Well, this particular patient had both liver 2 pressure pain, so I actually did 4 and 8, but
Yeah.
it didn't seem to kind of resolve. On the back, it was still very sensitive.
Okay. So, okay, a few things can happen here. It's possible that the liver, and no other fire point is painful, just the liver 2?
Yes, mainly liver 2, yeah.
Will mainly suggest something else.
Well,
Sorry.
it was possibly maybe a spleen, but it wasn't significant, they said,
Okay. Here's what I would say. Because you already have the experience of liver 4, liver 8, and the main complaint is what? Is the tightness in the...
Actually, no, the main complaint is migraines.
Okay. Which, of course, to anybody in Chinese medicine, migraines, but in TCM, immediately we think of liver. So, so fair enough. Okay. So the liver 2 pressure pain in this particular case may come from the liver 12 area, from the inner thigh, especially because you say there's something on spleen 2. The big toe and the inner thigh are correlated. Okay. Often pain on the big toe can be released by needling liver 12 or spleen 12 up towards the body, the torso. So it's a possibility that's what's happening with this person, especially if they have migraines. Don't forget that liver 12, spleen 12 area also relates to the autonomic nervous system, because it relates also to the tailbone. Okay, so because if you tuck under, you're tightening the inner thigh. If you're pushing back, you're over loosening the inner thigh. So there's a possibility that what's happening there, for this person is actually, I mean, this is speculation.
Yeah.
Is the inner thigh is closer to the groin, affecting the big toe, therefore showing as if it's liver 2 pain, but it may not be actually liver 2 pain as it's supposed to be represented. Possibly. So I would just check that. Given that liver 4, liver 8 didn't do the trick, and I'm assuming that you were using those to go against the neck.
Yeah, and I think she does have a certain ANS, I would kind of think, symptoms as well. I mean, her neck, she had SCM. She also had cervicals.
Okay, so your main job. Okay, so your main job just kind of like is on the front at least, is to release the neck, with the idea of you release the neck, which will release the autonomic nervous system, the migraines will get better. And then you go to the back and go, oh, another confirmation of liver, even though I found liver 5 point, but I didn't find liver 14 area.
But she did have a little under the ribs though, as well.
Oh, she did. Okay. Now, so what I would do is this. If she had a little, I would check a number of other options. So you have your liver 4 and liver 8, and with liver 8 is a little complicated. In a sense that, so liver 4 is the one thumb below the ankle. Don't do it at the ankle because it doesn't do anything. And liver 8, what you have is you want the knee a little bit bent. The name is called the bending spring, Chuchuan. But the other thing is you want to look for like a feeling of like there's a little puffy, a little nodule there. Okay, so sometimes what happens, I think, is that people are just missing liver 8 as a point. But you should have gotten something from liver 4. So that's why it's kind of like not necessarily. Now, for the neck, liver 8 is the so-called basilar artery insufficiency combination with kidney 10. I actually use inner yin or liver 9 with kidney 7 or kidney 9 rather than kidney 10. So, so you have a number of variations there. I would look at the liver 12, spleen 12 area as a possibility. But what I was going to say is sometimes a fire point is just like anything else. It's not so conclusive.
Yeah.
So unless you're getting results with a metal water, you may say to yourself, you know what, this isn't right. And it sounds totally contradictory and totally weird. But for example, you may say if she has a little bit on liver, you may say maybe liver, and she's ANS. And if she has a rapid pulse, which is an extra bonus here, yeah,
She's good, actually. Her pulse was very weak.
weak,
Not big on,
but
yeah, yeah, weak.
I'm talking about the strength.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
No,
was
no, the speed. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the speed. Was it
no,
rapid?
it wasn't fast.
Okay, okay. So it's just that liver one is a better point for rapid pulse.
Mm.
I would try liver one because maybe it's a liver deficiency. But the other thing, now that you're saying that pulse was very weak, one of the problems for us, who are not good pulse takers, is that we tend to go with all these abdominal findings, but we're forgetting that there is actually things that are indicated by the pulse that take precedence. If it's a weak pulse, one of the things you want to do is boost up the pulse. Okay, so that's probably going to be a spleen phenomenon. Okay, I would now, since I don't know where the migraines are, but spleen 6 generally is a good point for migraines, especially top of head or front. Okay.
Sure, actually, we did speak about the migraines a week or two ago, but it was all over. They were
Happens.
everywhere.
Yeah, yeah,
Feeling them, seem to feel them everywhere.
yeah. No, so what I would do is I would look at here's what I would, these are experiments. So I would, for example, press spleen 6. So I would look at spleen 6 plus pericardium as a combination to just try and boost up the blood. It might be spleen 9, by the way. And by the way, spleen 9 and the toes also have a good resonance. Okay. And I would press, see if the liver 2 pressure pain, so, for a second, you let go of the liver 4, liver 8, because it's always available.
Yeah.
It's not like the points will disappear in her because you press spleen 6. It's still an option. I press spleen 6 or spleen 9 and I go, how's liver 2? And I also check how's the SCM, the cervicals, the scalenes, whatever else there is to check, because I have another clue now. So it's really a question of I pick up a clue from wherever I can, and I check the solution for that clue, where that clue leads me to. I check everything else,
So,
even though everything else is not indicated for spleen 6.
so that's because of the weak pulse. That is right.
Because of the weak pulse, and the reason why spleen 6, it might be spleen 9 also. But since we're saying something like something is weird on the liver channel, how can I affect it? Having conceivably failed with liver 4, liver 8. In other words, I'm looking for an alternative. So spleen 6, isn't it the meeting of all the yin channels on the leg, meaning it affects the liver?
Mm.
So it's a possibility. The other thing is, so there's this rule that says if you have lots of fire points, use kidney, use kidney 7. Basically, if you have, the liver, the spleen, and the kidney are all painful. So there's some priorities, because let's say somebody has fire points, all fire points are painful. What happened? What are you going to do? I mean, that's 24 points. Metal water on every single channel, and there's 2 of them because they're on both sides. Actually, no, that's 48 points. Because there's 12 channels on both sides. That's 24 channels, 2 points for each channel. That's impossible. Makes no sense to do that. So I would, sometimes you need some shortcuts, and sometimes, a fire point doesn't need the metal water off that channel. It needs something else sometimes. In her case, it's possible that it's a big toe issue to begin with, and it's not an actual fire point reflecting the liver channel. We don't know. I'm just making stuff up. So you just want to kind of get creative with your, you've got your repertoire. So you palpate and you have your dogma. It's like you wrote down, I could do this and this and this and this and this according to This comes from the medical history. This comes from this finding. This comes from this finding. This comes from this finding. And this comes from just because I made it up, whatever. But you've got your list of options of dogmatic solutions. And then you say to yourself, well, I probably don't want to use all 20 of these. You usually don't have 20, but but if you're getting more than 3 or 4, you know that you need to cut them down.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you just experiment with each solution for the clue that you got. And the way you know if it's a good clue or it's a sideline, it's entertainment, so to speak, is if it fixes just the thing it's supposed to by dogma, it's a weak clue. If it fixes what it's supposed to, plus it starts affecting lots of other things, it's a strong clue. That does not mean that I won't use a weak clue as extra on top, just to make sure. Because you don't know, it's like, look, it could have been a weak clue, but maybe it's really the thing that's holding the whole thing together, even though it doesn't show it when I'm confirming how much it released. But it might be. So if I had 20 ideas and, say 10 of them are basically quote unquote weak clues, okay, 3 of them are strong clues, and then 7 of them are sort of medium, they do some, and I'll pick the 3 strong ones and maybe 1 or 2 more of, because, well, obviously this patient is very complex, and there's I'll try and remember all the 20 options, and I'll pick up, I'll start with from the medium ones, I'll go with the ones that seem strongest or appeal to me the most for whatever reason, because of the medical history or whatever. So you can always sort of pad things up a little bit. You don't have to arrive at 1 diagnosis or even 3 diagnoses, but at that point you're just padding, you're just kind of like doing a little extra, but you want to be intelligent about how you do it. So it's kind of like, it seems that the liver 4, liver 8 is not great for this person, at least in terms of the paraspinals. Well, first of all, maybe the paraspinals are not related to the liver. Maybe they're really a structural. Maybe it's the sacroiliac that needs to be dealt with. That's okay. So just because if liver 4, liver 8 did a good enough job for other things, I would leave it. I wouldn't just take it out. But if you want, experiment with, okay, how can I release liver 2 without liver 4, liver 8? Is there a way to do this on this patient? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of.
Yes, there was a lot of complication. Like she had showed a lot, and the history as well. She had like at age 4, I think it was. She had a heart monitor on, and at different periods throughout. She's only about 27. She seemed to have palpitation and some heart issues from very young.
Okay.
And also a gangrenous appendix.
Oh,
Gangrenous appendix, yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, that's significant.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
Well, gangrene inside the body, it's one thing, you had something cut and you didn't treat it well, and you put your hand in the mud, and you put the wound in the mud, and you're an idiot, and it got gangrenous. This is like inside the body. That's pretty, and it suggests some major weak immunity.
Yeah.
To begin with, well, first of all, you right there and then she's like I said, I don't like dogma, but right there and then she's a spleen 9 category.
Yeah, because I was looking for the scar actually, but she didn't. They did like a keyhole. She had like 3 different, what do you call those little incisions?
The orthoscopic.
One over on the left and one just under the navel.
Yes.
And on the right.
Yeah, don't worry. That's not, first of all, she may not even have pressure pain around the appendix anymore. It's possible because it was age 4, the body has adjusted, whatever. I don't know.
Well, no, the appendix was a bit later. The palpitation was age 4. I think the appendix was maybe 18 or 19.
Okay. So it is, yeah. So supposedly she should show right stomach 26, 27, but I would still check spleen 9, for everything, because it seems to be part of the constitution, and I would check immune point. Um, and I would also check stomach 41, needle towards the gallbladder. That's an anti-inflammatory point. So, from the medical history. And the other thing is, so now the question is, for example, are these palpitations part of the same pattern that created the gangrene? In other words, is there some weird circulatory thing? Like, who are the people who get gangrene typically, in our world, are diabetics, because there's bad microcirculation. Is it possible that really her real issue is cardiac?
Yeah.
And is it possible that the liver is contributing? So here again, to put the to give a cheer for liver 1 again. Liver 1 is a good point, generally speaking, for cardiac types. Okay. So even though liver 1 is supposed to be liver deficiency, and liver 2 pain supposedly shows some sort of excess, but you don't know. Liver 1 may still help. And the other thing is, see if she has any diagnoses of her condition, of her cardiac condition, if they ever came up with something.
Oh,
no,
they didn't actually. No.
Okay, yeah, it happens.
It seemed that she did have a monitor at different
Right.
points, and nothing showed.
And my suspicion is that she may have some sort of vascular disease that therefore affects the heart. So in other words, for example, some of these vascular diseases are related to the liver because of clotting factors and things like that. The liver is involved in a lot of this. So, yeah, I don't really have like a clear direction to suggest to you, but except to say, do not ignore the appendix in any way, shape, or form. Impossible to ignore something like this. And do not ignore the fact that there is a cardiac constitution in the background. Cardiac or vascular.
Yeah, she did show the left kidney line, and also bladder 60 pressure pain.
Okay, so yeah, so start looking at, if I treat cardiac, what happens to, and also don't forget that one of your main points, granted not so much for weak pulse, but one of your main points for cardiac issues is REN4.
Yeah.
REN4 is a better point when you have a flooding pulse, a pulse that's sort of up on the surface, granted. But, and don't forget that REN4, Guan Yuan, and Yuan here is the gate to the primary, but or the checkpoint of the primary. The Yuan here is like the head over the legs, meaning primary, not source. The head is leading. So REN4 and the head are connected. So now you have a whole new, when you start connecting dots this way or points that way, you kind of get into the situation where I wonder what I can extract out of REN4, either as a reflex or as a treatment point. Where will it lead me? And it may lead you nowhere.
Yeah.
But it's just a way to start to look into options. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you're always sort of chasing the abdomen.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that's not the better way to do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely, cardiac types, that needs to be addressed. Do you know what her blood pressure is?
She didn't know, actually. Yeah, she wasn't sure.
Okay.
I thought there may be some blood pressure, because yeah, I don't know why I thought that, but yeah, I think it was just the ANS, like she'd occipital pain, pressure on the occiput as well, and the third toe seemed to do really good job for that.
So there's a good chance she has circulatory issues, and okay, so I'm just wondering if the third toe affected the liver 2 pressure pain, for example. That'd be another way to
Yeah.
kind of mix and match and see what happens once you know, the more you mix the metaphors, the clearer they become
Yeah.
for the patient, not for you, you know, on the patient rather. You know, the more one metaphor works on other metaphors,
Mm.
the more clarity one gains as to, oh, this is really at the root here, or this is getting closer to the root, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
Yes,
So
it was
yeah,
just hard to prioritize what to do. You know, it was she had quite a lot, you know,
yeah.
going on.
Some patients are very, I like that, because there's a lot of things and it's hard to get everything kind of sorted out.
And then the headaches were her main complaint.
Sorry?
The
Yeah,
migraines were her main complaint. So it was just hard to know where to go with them. And then the fact that she had them everywhere as well. You know, they were front
yeah.
and back, and
Yeah, so you know, so in a case like this, you do what you can to release everything else, and especially in the neck, and see if you can, how much traction you can get out of blood pressure treatment. You know, and if you get none, you let it go, no big deal. But you know, and don't forget, so now you here's the thing, we keep coming back with this patient for some reason. It doesn't mean that it's correct, but for some reason there's a great attraction here for pericardium spleen.
yeah,
Because of blood pressure, circulation, the spleen 6, well, the spleen 9 for the appendix, the spleen 6 for the for the liver too, blah blah. I mean, there's just, and the weak pulse. There's just so much that's kind of goes spleen pericardium. Please, 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 check me out, check me out.
she had pericardium 8, pressure pain on the left.
Okay, yeah. So again, suggest. So I would here, and sometimes one just has to have a certain kind of patience or a certain kind of gumption to sort of say, look, I'm going to do the blood pressure treatment. Spleen 6, spleen 9, under third toe, pericardium, you know, 3 and 5 on the left, pericardium 4 on the right. And, you know, I'll add immune point because of the appendix thing, and maybe I'll give myself a little bit more to look at this liver 2 thing, maybe liver 11, 12, you know, but I'm done. I want to see, because if I chase too much, I'm no longer clear. So I have to be willing to say, I'm willing to let it fail so that I can rule it out. Because what happens with a very complex patient, there two things can happen. There's the type that no matter what you do, everything disappears. And then you go, are these points really working? Like, what the hell's going on here? Like, and then, you know, it's like every time I press a point, they say, oh, much, much, much better, but the symptoms don't necessarily go away. So it's like, wait a second, this is like, you know, psychosomatic. They just like to be touched and they tell you everything is fabulous. It's a possibility. The other type is no matter what you do, it's like they'll tell you, no, no, maybe a teeny bit, you know, and you know, it's like, and you're tearing your hair out, you know, which of course immediately puts them into the third toe category. So, you know, just for the sake of it. But so until you find, and sometimes the reason why things don't work, they say no, 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 is because until you tap into something primary in them, nothing's going to work. And once you did, suddenly the things you tried before that didn't work will work. So I would just kind of go, you know, depending on, I don't know what the situation was with this patient, but in a complex situation, you just have to have a lot more guts to sort of go, this may not get results, we may not see results, it's not what I want to do, but I'm willing to take the chance that that's what will happen.
Yeah.
And you know, so go with an idea, as long as the idea proves itself on the abdominal findings or the neck findings, you know, it's a valid way of treating. It's certainly just as valid, if not more, than doing 4 gates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, think about it. You know, how do other people work that don't use palpation? You know, they don't have confirmation methods, you know, to be able to do it. So you have a huge advantage of having this idea I can confirm what I'm doing,
Yeah.
use that. You
Yeah.
know, and if you can't confirm, you can't confirm. Or if you confirm and it's wrong, that happens, you know, not the end of the world.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, that's given me a few more ideas.
All right.
I think it was that she had so much, you know, going on, and like that the points didn't seem to be doing a great job. You know, there were sort of like mediocre results, you know, from a lot of them.
So
But it was
I,
just hard to know. Yeah, hard to know
yeah.
what.
So a number of things that could work in you know, well, two things. First of all, when that happens, look at it as, oh, cool. I get to play detective. I get to do more. I mean, it's kind of frustrating. I get it, you know, and especially right now when you kind of want.
If I had your brain, Abby, maybe.
It, it's not that special. It's just that I know that I have more of a computer-like capacity, you know, to do this. Part of the thing I find, especially in this period with COVID, is it's frustrating because I really don't want to spend too much time
Yeah.
in the room with them. I want to try and do it as, you know, so it's not, this method of working is not as conducive, granted. And again, so then you say to yourself, okay, I do what I can. But the things I would look for, the possibilities I would look for are the REN4. And remember that REN4 and side gallbladder 27 are kind of connected. So you may not get anything from REN4 as a treatment point or even as a reflex, but you may get a lot of change by treating side gallbladder 27. Okay, so there's a good possibility with that. Look at the spleen, especially the spleen 9, and look at immune because of the appendix gangrene business, and look at stomach 41 also. Those are the things that I would, or even stomach chi in general.
Actually, I did. Yeah, I did a stomach chi point for her. She did.
And let me ask you this, and I'm being devil's advocate here. When is she coming back?
Next Thursday.
Okay, so it's a little early to sort of be disappointed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is not in how I feel about the treatment. The proof is in how the migraines are. And if I then sort of like go crazy about I didn't release the right side UB1718, you know, it's like beating yourself up.
Yeah.
There's no point yet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, so I would wait until, and my suggestion, if at all possible, first time patient,
Yeah.
try and get them, yeah, try and get them in the next week. You know, because it sounds like it's almost a 2 week, it will be a 2 week lag, or maybe, you know, it's not. First of all, I mean, do you know how many people tell you to come in 3 times a week? You know, first time for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. I'm not advocating, but I think once a week also for yourself, for you, I find that it's hard for me to remember what's going on when it's more than a week. You know, with a new patient. With an old patient, it's different. You already know them. And also I always tell people, first treatment is an experiment. Second treatment is when we can try and confirm a diagnosis and maybe talk about prognosis, because I can talk prognosis, but it doesn't mean anything. But, you know, because they all want to know, well, what do you think? You know, how many treatments? What do I? I'm like, let's see, I'm experimenting now. Let's see if I have it right. If I have it right, we can talk about it. If not, the second treatment gives me an opportunity to revise and see what things I left out, what things I made a mistake on, you know, so it's almost like the second treatment, you know, most people quote unquote charge more for first treatment because they spend more time. I don't charge more for second treatment, but if I were to charge more for a treatment, it really should be for the second treatment. Because the real work, in a way, can be in the second treatment.
Yeah.
It's not a problem if they say it's fine, but if they say it didn't work very well, that's when you're actually spending a lot more time and energy, because you already did the clear things have been done, the easy things have been done. Now you're looking for the extra clues. So, you know, so that would be my advice, if at all possible. Get them in next week as opposed to waiting 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Heavy.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you talked about if all, most of or many of the fire points are tender, you use kidney, especially kidney 7.
Mhm.
Would you also do kidney 710 or just kidney 7?
Okay. If kidney 2 was also painful, I would use kidney 7 and 10.
Okay.
But if there are a whole bunch of fire points on the leg, especially, and not else, and well, okay, this gets really complex. So on the hand, on the hand, it's not so common. I mean, you usually get you get lung and or pericardium, and you don't generally get pericardium on both sides. It's extremely rare that pericardium 8 is painful on both sides. And then you have the heart 8 is extremely rare, painful. And then you have your large intestine 5, large intestine 5, small intestine 5, I believe, and Sanjiao 6, I believe, are the fire points. So what I would do is I would prioritize the pericardium fire point, okay, and the hand. But the other thing is, if you have lots of fire points, you have so first of all, one of the things, start looking at it. Okay, there's a systemic fire in the body. How can I address that? So you're going back to the possibility of the autoimmune treatment of kidney and lung, systemic metal water, and see what that does to all the fire points. Another thing that can happen, especially in the legs, is if they don't have the chuai, if they don't have the pressing down to lift up, if there's no activity in the inner leg, the fire points can show up because well, in the case of the stomach and the bladder, they're on the ankle where the weight is. In the case of the kidney, it's right under the ankle. In the case of this, and then it's the yin spring points of the liver and spleen. So they're all places where weight is just like dropping. Some of these people actually, if you needle inner yin, the fire points will start getting better. If you give them a sort of lift in the body, maybe the fire points will get better. It's an option. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting.
Anything else?
Just quickly, Evie, I know
Yes.
we're not in time, but this going back to this patient, I feel there was a hormonal issues there as well, and she didn't get a period till age 17, which is very late. Is there anything significant about that?
Yeah, it does suggest, well, it's a hard one. I mean, that on its own is not an immediate hormonal issue because, it could suggest, okay, so so let's look at it this way. Let's call it something like this. This is theory or dogma for the sake of it. So here is a person who at age 4 already has palpitations, okay? And she develops gangrene in the appendix at age 18. At age 17, she gets a period. So first of all, you sort of wonder, did the periods and the intestinal thing, are they correlated somehow? They're close, physically.
Yeah, the migraines were kind of around 15. So they were kind of a little bit before, yeah.
No, I was talking about the appendix.
Yes.
Not the
Yeah,
migraines.
no,
I understand. So we're saying the migraines are, the migraines could be, so look, there's a whole bunch of things that you can look at. You can say the migraines are coming when the period was supposed to come and it ain't coming and it ain't coming and it's flushing, the chung is flushing up to the head is, I guess is how the Chinese will express it according to the theory. So what I would say is there could be some sort of quote unquote Jing deficiency. Okay. That suggests, that this person just doesn't have the developmental capacity, well, that sounded horrible. They didn't have the developmental capacity. I mean, like just physically, the body is forming late, that the things that just didn't coalesce quite right according to everyone else's development. So maybe you want to look at you know, what happens if you deal with the jinx? So now, so here is a point that could, you know, and which you could have gotten to from the bladder 18, 17, 18 area, um, gallbladder 39. It's a point of marrow, could address the headaches, could address the neck, and you're putting yourself into like trying to fortify the jing and then add to that ren 4. And again, you could have a situation where you say, you know, you can go very minimalistic, and intentionality counts here, I guess. So ren 4 plus gallbladder 39, I became very TCM in my thinking of jing development and see what the hell is going on. You know, and now of course I would check, does it release the neck? Did it, you know, I mean, I don't just do it because I had an idea. But here is a whole other idea that you can use. It's like, this is a person who has late development. Does it mean that they have some hormonal blocking? Possibly. Is it possible that there is something in the liver that doesn't convert hormones right? I mean, I don't know enough about all the hormonal creations of how each hormone, you know, like what the necessary precursors are for everything. That's so not my field, but I know that there's liver involvement in these things. So I'm primitive. so, um, so is it? Yeah, it's entirely possible that's what's going, you know, that's what's going on. So you can try and address it maybe through the, you know, but we've already talked about the liver, but address it from the concept of, if I say the word jing, um, lateness in development, lateness in the jing expression, what does that evoke in terms of points? So it gives me more options to check. And, you know, if some point proves to be correct, then I've made up a new pattern, whatever I want to call it. Late jink, blah, 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 whatever, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it's more a question of like experimenting and seeing what I can make out of something.
Yeah.
You know, the natural sort of tendency to go, it's hormonal because the menses came late. And in today's world, 17 is very late. I think that was late even 40 years ago. You know, but yeah, it suggests something, but it's hard to know what it's suggesting.
Yeah.
And it could be that you know, this gangrene in the appendix was festering probably for years prior. You know, it became gangrene at 18, but there was some sort of inflammation that was presumably, I don't know. Or there could be, you know, so, and again, you have a whole new way of looking at things. You can say, okay, so there's a Chong issue. You can call this is a Chong issue. Okay, the menses are late, there's headaches, there's a surging up, and there's a lateness in development or whatever, and there's microcirculatory issues. Could I address it through the Chong? You know, so now you're saying to yourself, I wonder if spleen 4 will do it. By the way, okay, so do 13 is the same level as UB11. I believe UB11 is considered the C of Chong. Okay, try one of those. The thing about do 13, so that level of T1, basically, see what you're getting out of it. Okay, so do 13 is called Tao Dao. It's like the happy, that something to do, it's the translation of, I'd have to look it up now. You know, there's a translation that says that it's a pottery. It has something to do with pottery, but that's actually a slightly different character. It actually means happy. And it suggests to me, for next time, I'll look up the character and give you the analysis. But for me, it suggests that things are spreading, like microcirculation is working well. You know, and UB11, you know, also is not the shoe of the bone, the meeting point of the bones. And it's I believe it's on the it's listed as a point of on the C of Chong. So that you know, again, if it says to you, I wonder if there's anything interesting to look at the level of T1,
Mhm.
you know, and see what I can milk out of it, you know, either as a reflex or as a treatment.
Yeah.
So you just, you know, just take all your information and mash it up and match up different theories and possibilities to it. And, you know, and it's not so important to come up with new ones. If the only time it's important to come up with new ones is when it's not working.
Yeah.
As long as there's something's working, it doesn't matter. Which is wise for so many acupuncturists. Liver 4, large intestine, you know, liver 3, large intestine 4, stomach 36, solves everything.
The only thing with the migraines, they it was hard to judge because
Of course.
she gets them about, you know, 7 or 8 bad ones during a year, let's say, over the period of a year.
Yeah.
So it was kind of
It,
hard.
yeah, you can't, unlike, even if they come with a migraine and you get rid of the migraine, doesn't mean that it doesn't come back. All you can do, so this is why you're doing the best you can to release reflexes, release things you find in the body as a way of saying to yourself, there's a good chance it will affect the migraine.
Yeah.
Because migraine, I mean, even if you press on the head and they say pain, that's not the same pain as the migraine. That's, you know, you can release pressure pain in different places on the head, and it's not necessarily related to the migraine. So you do the best you can in the situation.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else to be done.
True. That's
All
great.
right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So enjoy your week.
Yeah, you
Thank
too.
you, Avi.
Thank you, Camille. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mary Jo.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye. Bye.